Intellectual property is part of the basis of the world economy, something so integral to the everyday function of the world. It affects us all. Intellectual property accounts for 52% of all U.S. exports, and IP-intensive industries make up 30% of all U.S. jobs. Something so important deserves our attention. But do students care about IP? What do they know? Where did they learn it? And is that information accurate? A student team at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, asked many students at the university what their thoughts on intellectual property are. This included students from different academic backgrounds, seeing what they knew, and how they felt. Many of the students' thoughts were very insightful, while a few were misinformed. Here's what they had to say.
So what's your major?
My major right now is healthcare science.
Exercise science.
Biochemistry.
Sport management.
I'm a nursing major.
Biology.
I'm a physics major.
Physics.
Political science major.
Do you know what intellectual property is? Is there anything that kind of comes to mind when you hear the word intellectual property?
No.
Intellectual property is anything that you cannot tangibly hold. It applies to ideas and things that you plan on doing, but you can't physically hold in your hand.
I want to say a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm confident in the topic.
Anything of high value that can't be held in the palm of your hand.
Intellectual property is the right to one's personal inventions.
Pretty much like the ownership kind of ideas, the ownership of creativity from people.
I've heard the definition of it before, but straight up, I probably couldn't tell you what it is.
When I think of intellectual property, it's probably just like you create something, you basically are like the driving force behind it coming out.
I know what they are. I don't know a lot of the specifics around them.
Have you heard of a patent?
Mm-mm.
I know you can patent your ideas or things that you do, work that you do, but I don't know the process of how to get one or things like that.
Protection of commercialization or innovation ideas.
It's a protection on your intellectual property.
Okay.
So that no one can infringe upon your idea, your design, whatever.
Legal documentation that you can use to determine or to say that you have rights to something.
A patent is someone legally saying this idea is mine, and if anybody else uses it, you can fine them or sue them or something like that.
Legal document that is given to an inventor for creating a product or a service or
something that you create and then you own, and then it's kind of yours, so nobody else can create that idea.
Despite the importance of IP rights, many students only knew a little bit or just had surface-level information about IP. Intellectual property experts examined the students' interviews to see what they could tell these students about IP. Here's what they had to say.
What would you say, from watching these videos, how well informed do you think students are in regards to intellectual property?
Well, they clearly vary in their knowledge. A few of the folks did really well.
I think it's about average. I think some of the students had some accurate comments, but in general, it was they were unaware of it.
Now, do you think people as a whole, members of society, should have a certain level of intellectual property understanding?
Sure. Intellectual property is a tool for encouraging creativity and innovation.
I think all the population should know about it because it's a fundamental right guaranteed in the Constitution. I think I would teach them why that's important fundamentally, just like freedom of religion and freedom of speech and other rights that we have. Intellectual property is an economic right that is really important to society.
So you think as a fundamental right, it should be mandatory education for everybody?
Yeah,
essentially.
It's typically go in the, you get the stories of Thomas Edison and different things of discovery, and their narratives that are really inspirational in a way, but they don't see it in the context of how it affects their life. And, the fact that we can bring these vaccines out, say, in the last year so quickly and respond. It didn't happen through a bureaucratic government organization. It happened through an economic system created based on intellectual property rights.
Now, what do you think the implications are of, our society of younger students and younger people don't have any sort of understanding or awareness of intellectual property?
Well, we run the risk that other countries will do a better job going forward of reaping the benefits of intellectual property and potentially propel their economies to grow faster than ours and overtake our competitive positions.
I think we're suffering from that right now because you know, society is people, particularly young people, are very involved in rights and social justice issues. But if they just looked under the hood a bit, they would see that one of the biggest social justice issues that is a common thread amongst all the problems we have is the lack of good jobs. And the best social system for me is a good job. And I long ago, from how I grew up and my family alone, but just the situation is, if we had the economic opportunity that we've had in the past that allowed us, as society post-World War II, to grow so much for everybody, if we had that same fundamental structure, we would not have as much of the social outrage that's going on right now.
These students told us what they know about IP, and even though they didn't have that much additional information, IP experts were able to fill in the gaps and analyze what they knew. Some were knowledgeable, and some were misinformed, but this is just a glimpse into what people know about IP and the misinformation that surrounds it. IP rights strengthen everybody and allow for ideas to be transformed from just an idea to something of value. Everybody knows a little something about IP, but it's everyone's responsibility to become more informed on intellectual property. Thank you for watching. To learn more, go to understandingip.org.